I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 113 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And as this airs, it will be Christmas Eve. So first, let me say, rest assured, I recorded this in advance so that I can spend the holidays with my family. Christmas Eve is a sacred tradition in our family. It's when we go to Mass. It's when we go to my parents' house for very traditional dinner in my mom's Slovak heritage. And it's also when we exchange gifts with my parents. So it's become a very precious tradition in our family, always was in mine growing up as well. And then, of course, we have the big day, Christmas Day tomorrow, followed by a few days with my husband's family, his siblings and his parents and all the kids. So that's always a really good time for a few days that immediately follows Christmas. And then we'll be back in town in time for the New Year's holidays. So I hope you have holiday plans that you're delighted about. I hope you're getting some time off of work and some time to restore yourself, to celebrate with your friends and your family, and also a little bit of time for reflection. I think this is a time of year that lends itself super well to reflection, especially these last, week or two of December. And the energy shifts as we move into January. We all can feel it. It's a time for new beginnings and fresh starts and really getting ourselves healthy. Like everybody's energy shifts to that in just a week or so. So this time, for this week, I'm going to share a process with you today to guide you through a personal year-end review. I have done this for years. I've done it in different ways in different years, some much more complex than others. But I simplified the process a while back and thought you might find it helpful. I actually shared this last year on the podcast. So today I'm going to share a replay with you of how to conduct a personal year-end review and really look for the insights of what worked exactly the way you meant it to, and maybe what didn't go exactly the way you hoped, that you could start to prepare for a shift going into the new year. This is the exact process I'll be following in some quiet moments with a cup of coffee and hopefully a fireplace and maybe a blanket in the upcoming weeks. But you may choose to do this out of your house, and I've got some ideas that I'll share with you during this episode about how to really protect the headspace that you'll need to do this well. I'm going to get into that in just a second. Before I do, I want to give you a preview of coming attractions. So next week on the podcast, which will be New Year's Eve, I'm talking about New Year's resolutions, of course. And my philosophy on those is a little unconventional. So make sure you tune in to hear all about it. And as we get into January, kind of full throttle into New Year mode, we are kicking off the next round of 30 days to vibrant energy. This has been an exceptional vehicle to help women raise their energy threshold. And we've taken many, many women through this. We started it for the first time in July. We've done a few rounds, and the next one is starting on Monday, January 6th. So the doors are open now. If you know you want to come into the new year feeling really strong, you want to be in this challenge with us. All the details are waiting for you at the Energy Challenge page. So you want to head over to Cherylanne Skolnicki, long mouthful to spell, I know, CherylanneSkolnicki.com/energy challenge. And you will find all of the details that you need to learn about 30 days to vibrant energy. So again, it's CherylanneSkolnicki.com, my name, /energy challenge, all one word. And when you get there, you'll learn all about how we're going to walk you through these 30 days, learning the 4 critical practices to raise your energy threshold. Don't want to miss that. Okay, without further ado, here is my process for how to conduct a year-end review that's going to get you finishing up this year and heading into the new year feeling amazing. I will see you all next week. And today, as we sit here basically still at the very beginning of December, even though it kind of feels like we're far into the holiday season already, I want to invite you to insert a little bit of a pause in your hustle and bustle. And this pause is a purposeful one. It's specifically for some reflection. And I promise you, this activity is time that you will really cherish. So don't blow this off and say, I don't have time for this. I'm in the middle of all the holiday crazy. You're insane. I cannot sit down and do anything that, involves reflection. But I promise that this activity done at this time of year, wherever you decide to schedule it in the month of December, will be time really well spent. And the underpinnings of this idea came to me a week or two ago because I was digging through a stack of books looking for an exercise that I had done a number of years ago. And I had done this when my husband and I took a trip to Colorado. We were skiing in Beaver Creek and in Vail. And we had a really exceptional trip because the day that we landed, there was very little snow on the ground in Denver. We went to rent a car and they kept trying to get us to upgrade to an SUV. And my husband's like, it's just the two of us. We really don't need an SUV. And they kind of looked at us like we were crazy because as it turns out, there was a massive blizzard about to land. Like it was, within an hour, the snow was going to start. So sure enough, as we are making our way up the mountain in the SUV that we did let them talk us into, the snow started to fall and it just kept falling and kept falling and kept falling. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that they had 4 feet of snow that landed the day that we arrived. It was exceptional. And, if you're not an experienced skier, skiing in 4 feet of fresh powder is not exactly for the novice. So my husband was a pretty novice skier at the time. We spent a lot of time on the slopes, but we also spent a lot of time inside. And the lodge that we were in was fantastic. It had one of those giant stone fireplaces, with a crackling fire and the wall of windows looking out onto the hillside and the slopes. And they were just covered with snow. The trees were so beautiful. So I spent a lot of time with this journal that I was working through. I was really in a pretty contemplative place looking through the state of affairs in my life at the time, both my work and, our personal life and where we were trying to take things. And I was trying to make some big decisions. And there were a lot of reflective questions that I really wanted to ponder. And so this fall, I wanted to go back and look at some of what I had written during that time. And I couldn't remember exactly how long ago it had been. Like I couldn't remember, how that happens when you're in your 40s. You can't remember exactly what year the trip happened. So it turns out it was 5 years ago. And what I learned when I read back through this workbook that I had been using is that there were many things that I had identified at that time that needed some change that have massively improved. Many things that are just in a completely different place than they were 5 years ago, which is awesome, right? Like it's really fun to look back and see that life is improving from year to year. But there were 1 or 2 things that I would say are still kind of gnawing at me. They aren't quite settled. They aren't where I want them to be. And 5 years ago in this journal, the exact same things had been described in the exact same ways. And that was humbling. It was really humbling to look back and realize that while I have probably talked about these things for the last 5 years, I really haven't done much to address the underlying patterns. And so that was sort of the impetus for doing this episode of the podcast, because as winter is approaching, and I was thinking back to sitting in that ski lodge with all that snow, it was such a great time to be sort of hunkered down and really quietly reflecting on where I was, thinking through where was my life in need of some kind of a change. And I think winter is a pretty natural time of reflection. The days are shorter, by definition, the nights are longer. You kind of want to do things like light a fire and, make stew or soup and get in your cozies and, curl your feet up under you with a blanket. So it's the perfect time to sit down with some really good questions and chew on them. And so that's what I'm going to set you up to do today. I'm going to encourage you to make this a moment. Get out of your norm. You don't have to go to a ski resort in Colorado, but do something that maybe gets you out of your normal day-to-day rhythm. Get some of your favorite materials. Is it a new journal? Is it a blank notebook? Is it a canvas? Be creative. You could go through this exercise by writing out answers. You could draw it. You could make a photo collage. You could get out all your colored Sharpies and make charts. You could do it in Excel, whatever it is that really feels right to you. But what we're going to do in this exercise that I'm calling the year in review is we're going to think through a few questions and contemplate, what kind of a prompting you might feel, what kind of a nudge you might feel as you close out 2018 and move toward 2019. So I like doing this type of exercise in December because it's the look backward. It's a reflection exercise. This isn't really so much the planning, although you may feel that you naturally move into that. But you can separate the two. You can do just this reflective exercise and sort of sit with the answers before you move into any type of action-taking mode. Okay? So what we're going to spend a little bit of time on here are teeing up the questions. And I will tell you, if you Google my year in review or year-end review or personal review at the end of the year, any of those kinds of phrases, you're going to get lists and lists and lists of questions. 50 questions, 100 questions, 200 questions that you can sort through. I'm going to really simplify this down to just a handful of questions that I think get at the essence of a healthy year in review that doesn't bog you down in a lot of extras. Okay, so we're going to kind of take it at that level. But I would tell you, if there's something that you feel drawn to explore as you do this initial round of questions, if there's an area that surfaces for you or a question that's on your mind, by all means, follow that prompting because they can be very powerful. There are so many ways that you can do an exercise like this. So this is a fairly simplified version. I want to make it something that you have no excuses for, that you can get excited about, but that you don't feel like you have to spend 5 days in a silent, meditation to get to the answers. This is something that you should be able to do, probably inside of an hour or two, depending on how thorough you are in your responses. And then maybe put it away for a few days or a week and bring it back out again and really think through, sort through what your responses were. Okay? So you ready to get into the questions? I'm going to give these to you one by one. And then if you are, maybe listening to this in your car or something, I will repeat the questions at the very end so that if you want to come back to the episode and just write down those questions so you can actually start the reflection, we'll have them all in one place for you. Okay? So the first thing to think about is, what have I accomplished or experienced or learned this year? What have I accomplished, experienced, or learned this year? And usually when you ask a question like that, a couple things are going to come to mind right away. You're going to think about big milestones. Maybe you ran a marathon. Maybe you took a vacation with your family. Maybe you completed a course in something that you'd always wanted to learn about, right? Those are going to be the obvious ones. But don't stop there. I want you to dig a little deeper for things that you've accomplished, things you've experienced, and things you've learned. And they might have been done by yourself. They might have been done inside of your company. They may have been done within your family. Think fairly broadly about those questions. And I want you to use a couple of tools to prompt you so that you can get a really good list. One of the best tools I know, if you use it effectively on the front end, is your calendar. Okay, so if your calendar reflects the things you've done, right, where you've spent your time, and if you're pretty disciplined about using your calendar to outline that, then your calendar is a treasure trove of information on what you've accomplished, experienced, or learned this year. So that is a great tool. You can go, flip back in your digital calendar or your paper planner And just go month by month and look for prompts that might trigger a memory for you of some of these accomplishments or experiences. The other one that is really powerful for this is to go back through your phone and look at your photos. Because your photos are capturing this almost photojournalistic style now of what your life is, of where you've been. And so if you're somebody who is very prone to pull your phone out and capture the moment, you're going to realize that this has chronicled your accomplishments. It might be, that birthday cake that you made for your daughter that was an accomplishment because you tackled something you haven't tried before. It may be an experience that you would have forgotten about if you didn't look back and see, oh, remember when we did that? There's the photograph of when we did it. Or something that you've learned. Maybe you were taking pictures of a book as you read through it and had key insights on certain pages. Or maybe it was a trip that you took where you learned something. So I want you to make sure you use a couple of aids to support your memory. So you don't just get the tippy top mountaintop experiences, but you get a little bit more richness and depth for those accomplishments, experiences, and things that you've learned this year. Okay, so that's the first question. And again, remember, you may choose to write these answers down. You might choose to do something that's more visual, right? You might draw them, you might use a photo collage, whatever the medium is that feels right to you to capture those experiences. That's the first question. And it should make you feel fairly positive, I would think. There's a positive focus on what you're looking for there. Hey friend, ever wondered why you're so tired all the time? Why you need that afternoon caffeine hit every day just to stay in the game? Hint, you probably need more sleep. So I created something just for you. It's my 7-day sleep makeover. I'll teach you the 3 steps you need to move from exhausted to energized so you can live out your brilliant dreams. Head to brilliantbalance.net/sleep and start your sleep makeover today. You're going to love this. The second question is, what did I mean to do, but I didn't do it? Okay, so this one may make you feel a little less positive, but I want you to think back to January of 2018 when all was fresh and new and you were looking at that blank calendar with so many hopes and dreams. What did you set out to do this year, but didn't actually complete or accomplish or even start? And I would tell you, before you beat yourself up too much, this is fairly normal, right? Virtually all of us will have at least one thing that we meant to do this year and just didn't get to it. So these are going to be really good promptings for your 2019 plan because you want to evaluate, is it still something that you would like to take on, right? If you didn't do it, why didn't you do it? What got in the way? And then if it's still important to you, what could you do to get a different outcome next year? So you want to get a pretty good list of things that you meant to do. You thought you would be at a different place by the end of this year. Maybe you thought you were going to change jobs. Maybe you thought you were going to lose those 20 pounds. Maybe you thought you were going to make progress on the manuscript for your book. What are the things that you meant to do? Maybe you were going to organize the basement, but it just didn't happen. Get a list of those things as well. Okay, and that's the second question. And then the third thing that we're going to look at is several different areas of your life. There are 7 of them here. And you're going to ask yourself for each one of these, has this area of my life improved over the last year? Has it declined over the last year? Or has it stayed about the same? Okay. Now, you may have wanted some of them to just stay the same. It doesn't mean that every single one of these has to improve, but I want you to think about over that last 12-month period, for each of these 7 areas, has it improved, has it declined, or has it stayed about the same? So let's kind of go through these 7 areas one by one. The first is your relationships. And you might want to break this one down and say, okay, my romantic relationship, like your marriage or your partner, your children, your relationships with your children, and then your friendships. And you could add others, like if you're particularly close to a sibling or one of your parents or somebody, a colleague, you can add that in. So romantic relationship, your relationships with your children, your friendships, and then any other one that you feel like it's important to evaluate. Has it improved, declined, or stayed the same? And for each of these, you can elaborate, right? You can put some color commentary on why or what's causing you to give it that response. And that'll help you as you go back and review this, but you can also just do the ratings and keep it very simple. Second area of your life is physical health. And I would look at that holistically. Most women, when I say physical health, they hear weight, but it really goes beyond your weight. It's a more 360 view of the state of your physical well-being. Third area to think about is your career or your professional life. The work that you do in the world. Has your overall impression of that improved, declined, or stayed the same? Has your satisfaction with your career and your work improved, declined, or stayed the same? So those are the first three. The fourth one is your finances. Have your finances improved, declined, or stayed the same? And you want to look at that again holistically. You want to look at your debt level. You want to look at your savings. You want to look at your income. You want to look at, your ability to operate within a budget. Like there's a kind of a 360 view of financial health, however you define it. And so you might have different areas. Some of them may have improved and others may have declined or stayed the same. So I'm going to recap the first four: relationships, physical health, career, and finances. Then the next one is your emotional health. So think of this as your outlook. When you think about your level of anxiety, when you think about your level of positivity versus depression, when you think about your self-image, like the quality of your emotional health overall, how in check it feels, has it improved, declined, or stayed the same? The sixth area is your energy level. So I'm separating this on purpose from your physical health. And I want you to think specifically about how energized you feel about your life. Do you wake up in the morning full of energy? Are you able to sustain it throughout the day? Are you able to fall asleep well at the end of the evening? Is the energy that you feel balanced and positive, or is it, frenetic? So your energy level and sort of the quality of your energy is the sixth thing. And the seventh area is your sense of fulfillment. Do you feel, when you look at your life overall, a sense of fulfillment? And has that improved, declined, or stayed the same over the course of this year? So if you take some time with each of those 7 areas, you're going to have a pretty robust picture of how things have changed over the last 12 months. Right? Each of those areas could be on very different trajectories. Your relationships could be sailing along and improving while your financial health is declining, or vice versa. So you want to get at that 360 view of kind of your complete existence. And there are other things that you could rate here. So for example, I did not include spirituality separate from emotional health. So you could put something in here about, the depth of your spirituality or your faith life. You may have other pieces of life that feel very important to you. Feel free to add them, right, to this list of 7. So once you've established that rating and then given yourself a little bit of time to think about, what's underneath it, the next question you want to ask is, how satisfied am I with those trend lines? Right? When I look at my physical health and I realize that it's stayed about the same over the last 12 months, am I okay with that? Is that kind of what my intention was, or am I frustrated by that? If I look at my energy level and I say, it's declined over the last year, am I okay with that? Is there maybe a good reason that would have happened? If I look at my career and I say it stayed the same, but I really wanted to change, right? Then I may identify I'm not very satisfied with that trend line. That's one that I really want to change. So for each area, when you look at, has it improved, declined, or stayed the same, you want to go back and really assess, am I okay with that? Am I okay with that? And as you unpack those answers and spend some reflective time thinking about what this year in review has turned up for you, that sets the stage for next year. That's going to set the stage for where do you feel a nudge to do something differently. So any place that you are not satisfied with the trend line, that's going to be your indication of this is a place where I'm going to invest some time and energy next year. Okay. And I just want to remind you that my team and I live for this, right? This is what we're here to do. This is why Brilliant Balance exists, is we are absolutely 100% here to support you as you plan this out, especially if you feel like you've been living the same year over and over again. Like you turn to a new calendar page, but it's basically, I'm about to repeat the same year I just had. And you're frustrated because you feel like you're stuck in a place that you don't want to be. Then absolutely reach out, because we can help you identify which resources might be missing that could help you break that cycle, right? That's really what we see the most often, is there is something we can see with an outsider's perspective that makes it clear to us what you might be missing that would help you break that cycle. Sometimes it is a moment of insight. It clicks into place and you're off and running. Sometimes it's a little bit of a more gentle slope where you sort of warm up and then find your stride as you go. But it is so fun to get to use these insights that we've developed from working with, hundreds of women at this point. And it's so fun to apply this process that we've developed to really help you get that forward momentum. So I would tell you, especially if you are a high achiever and you find that you're stuck in one or two areas where you just can't crack the code, that's our specialty. Definitely reach out, definitely get on our calendar, definitely give yourself the opportunity to chat about what you learned from this year in review, because, you may be able to use these insights as a really clear inflection point to get different results next year. Okay. So I'm going to recap, as I said I would, exactly what these questions are so that you have them all in one place. The first question that you want to do is you want to explore, what have I accomplished, experienced, or learned this year? And you want to use some prompts like your calendar or your phone photographs to help you remember things that you may forget otherwise. Second is, what did I mean to do, but I didn't do it? Right? What were those things that you meant to get to, but they just didn't happen? Third is, for each area of my life, you're going to rate, has it improved, declined, or stayed the same? And the 7 areas are your relationships, your physical health, your career, your finances, your emotional health, your energy level, and your overall sense of fulfillment. And once you have rated each area of your life, you're going to ask yourself, how satisfied am I with those trend lines? And that satisfaction is going to give you a clue as to where you may want to invest your energy in the coming year. Okay, so this is a fabulous activity. I can't wait to do mine. I have this planned for myself this month as well. I love doing it. I would definitely recommend you find a time when there's no distractions or other people around you, because you really don't want to be interrupted. You want to give yourself the opportunity to spend an hour or two really thinking about this. And think about that. You've just lived 365 days of the year. You just need to find an hour or two to reflect on it and see if there are some things you want to tweak going into 2019. So if you decide there are things you want to change and you want some support, or you just want to explore what support could look like for once, definitely reach out. We will get you onto our calendar and we'll have a conversation about what it might take for you to crack the code and get different results. That is all for today, my friends. Until next time, when we talk about where you fit into your family's holiday plans. We're not going to let you put yourself on the shelf. We're going to figure out where you fit into the plans. And you may be surprised by what you find out when we do this. So until next week, when we explore that, have a great week, a great year in review, and let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.
Stay safe.